Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Jason, thank you for engineering the broadcast at GCN today. Class, we broadcast 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, from the Ozark Mountains right here in Missouri. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is up, 605-477-3249. Rich Scheben's with us, offgridmontana.com. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
You, Vincent Finelli, how are you doing this morning?
Very well, very well. I look forward to hearing what you've got to say, so I'm just going to sit back, relax, and listen. Take notes, if that's okay with you.
Well, it's your show, but I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity and take advantage of exercising my First Amendment rights. So I appreciate
Can I just ask one question?
You may.
Technology. What are your thoughts on technology today?
Well, as anything that is new, it always evolves as some type of creature that's going to make society better. But really what technology has done is become a weapon to censor the little guy, to surveil the little guy. So many people, and I've done this before too, we use terminology like double-edged sword. That implies it's kind of a 50-50 benefit con situation. But it really is, as technology grows, it's totally the opposite. It's more like a 90-10 benefit, 90 in favor of the elite to control the masses, to create artificial intelligence, robotics, and automation to eliminate jobs for little people. I've read, and you'd have to talk to Dr. Rick Miller about this. I'm sure he's a lot more versed than I am. But I've read quite a bit about this 5G, where they're going to launch 20,000 satellites. He's concerned about RF waves, radiation, lasers, and much more, which would affect the health of the people. So when I hear people talking about, oh, technology is going to take care of us, make our lives easier, and words I hear are like drudgery. We won't have to garden anymore. We won't have to, we're going to have flying cars. Basically, the people who are going to have things like that are going to be the elite, the people with the big money. And what we're doing is we're damaging our young lives. We're giving them a monolithic, if you will, lifestyle where there's no balance between nature and technology. When you lose that balance between nature and technology, you lose a balance between common sense, rationale, thinking with foresight. The balance in life is absolutely important for happiness. And I'm not going to go into a economic 101 update, but I talk very often about how GDP numbers is not happiness. Happiness for the bottom 93% is, and should be, and most people who have done this agree, is being out of debt and having a healthy savings account. So when you talk about technology, what's happening, and there's so much evidence to show this, minds are easily being swayed to follow the elite talking points. and they're being groomed and cultivated not to think for themselves. So it's easier to divide and conquer the people by groups, and that's what's going on. So that's my short answer, Vince.
Okay. I've got a quote. Joey sent this to me, and I'd like to read it, and I think it is absolutely pertinent. When the law no longer protects you from the corrupt, but protects the corrupt from you, you know your nation is doomed. When the law no longer protects you from the corrupt, but protects the corrupt from you, you know your nation is doomed. Ayn Rand. Just wanted to share that.
Yep. And I've quoted that, I've mentioned that quote many times over the air, and it's absolutely true. And, there's another way to put this is that the kings are buying off the nobles to create a sedition and treasonous state to control the commoners. So I'll leave you with this quote. It's time for the lambs to become lions. Vince?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Let me give you an example. I've learned, we have a lot of correspondence throughout the country, and what I've learned recently is that banks are clamping down on cash. How much? Well, we used to believe that if you had a transaction greater than 10,000 or greater, you would be marked, and your information would be sent off to the government corporation for what are you doing with the cash. Now, that limit has been reduced by 2/3. We're now looking at about transactions over $3,500 or thereabouts being written down in journals at the bank cashier levels. Now, let me give you an example of what that means. I'm looking out the window of the studio here at the farm at a blue tractor. It's a 1974 Ford tractor. 47 horsepower. It's called a Ford 3000. I paid $3,500 for that tractor a couple years ago. And I did say 1974. So it's an old tractor. When I went to buy that, I went to the bank. I talked to the person selling it, and he said he wanted to sell it, but he didn't know who I was. So he was not going to take a check from me. And why should he? So I got a chance to look the tractor over. We drove the tractor for a short distance. We decided, it's probably okay. And we bought the tractor. And I handed him $35 $100 bills. $3,500. Everybody was happy. He got his cash. We got the tractor. Everything was good. Now the bank wants to know. And they're going to probably ask you, what are you going to do with the money, boy? I don't use profanity, but that might push me to it. I'm serious. This really angers me. Let me put this a different way. If a farmer has 100 cows, a cow eats about 30 pounds of hay a day. We're looking at 3,000 pounds a day to feed the cows through the winter. Hay right now in Missouri is about $100 a roll. It used to be $35 a roll. I'm using round numbers, okay? Hay used to be $35 a roll last year. For 1,000 pounds, $35. Now it's about $100 if you can get it. So if you wanted about 10 days worth of hay, it'd be about 35. If you wanted 35 rolls, about 10 days, give or take a little bit. And you went to the bank and said, I need some cash. And the cashier said to you, what are you going to do with that money, boy? Do you feel obligated to tell that teller, that minimum wage person, that, well, geez, I really need some hay or I don't feed my cows, they're going to die? Would it be okay if I got some cash? I'm not up for that. I'm not telling him anything. It's an outrage. It's none of their business. Class, if you don't start using cash, and this is nothing new for me to say this, if you don't start using cash or using more cash than you're already using, instead of submitting to the bankers with their credit cards and debit cards, if you don't start using cash, there will be no cash. Then nothing you do will be anonymous. Nothing. Including buying an old tractor or 35 rolls of hay. Actually, nothing you do will be anonymous. Nothing. Not including not buying bubble gum. Richard, you do not want to send me off on this tangent, I don't think. I'm angry. And I'm getting more angry by the minute. Every minute of every day I'm becoming more angry. I can't believe it. I can't believe how stupid people are. And, class, you're letting this happen. You're letting this happen. If you don't speak up and speak out and raise your voice with righteous indignation, you deserve what happens. If you don't go to Walmart and say, hey, y'all putting that pink slime in your meat still? You doing that? And let everybody know, then you deserve pink slime in your meat. Rich, back to you.
Well, thank you, Vince. As tempted as I am to go into Economic 101 updates, since you kind of went there with the price of cattle and talking about cash, I'm going to try and stick to my game plan this morning, Vince. And again, I want to thank you for allowing me to exercise my First Amendment rights. And I sent you this article yesterday, Vince. It was out of Zero Hedge, titled Paul Craig Roberts Explores a Disunited America. And obviously with the music coming up, I'm going to discuss that and much more. But when we come back, Vince, let me know in 30 seconds what you thought about that article, and then I'm going to take it from there, okay?
Sure will. We'll be right back. Rich Scheben's with us, and you asked me about the article on Zero Hedge, Paul Craig Roberts. And what the thrust of the article was about is the inability today to have humor in a public setting. And in this article, there are links to some videos from the 1974s for about 10 years to 1984. And the videos included the roasting of celebrities, people whose names you might recognize easily, like Dan Rowan, Dean Martin, Joe Namath, Rich Little, Nipsey Russell, Red Fox, Sammy Davis Jr., Phyllis Diller, Don Rickles, and many, many more, Foster Brooks. And the list goes on and on. I think there are about 54 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, over the years. They're truly, truly entertaining. And there was humor about, idiosyncrasies. If you were black, you were being picked on as being black. If you were white, you got picked on by the whites. I'm sorry. If you were black, you got picked on for being black. If you were white, you got picked on for being white. If you were Puerto Rican, you got picked on. And it was a bunch of people who were willing to allow to be poked fun of in the spirit of humor. And it was brilliant. As a matter of fact, I got lost going down the rabbit hole after reading that article. And I went back last night and read more and learned more and rewatched some of these YouTube videos that I remember watching live during the 1970s and 80s on television when we had television. And you know what? What was really nice about this is nobody used profanity. Nobody used the F word. You know, it seems like today people who pretend they are comedians can't get on stage without profanity. And the GDP seems to think that's okay. Well, if you want to see some real humor, I'll post a link to this article on the website, USA Prepares, and you can click on the links and watch the humor on YouTube videos. It is truly brilliant. Brilliant. But we've lost our ability to make fun of ourselves. We've lost our ability to laugh at ourselves and laugh with others at ourselves. And if you did any of these things that you'll see in the video, you will be labeled as someone who has perpetrated hate crimes. Rich, that's my answer.
All right. Well, that's a very accurate answer. And the title of this article, folks, is called Paul Craig Roberts Explores a Disunited America. And I'm going to read the first paragraph, then I go to the very end. Prior to the Democrats becoming the anti-American political party of identity politics, whites, blacks, and Puerto Ricans could laugh at themselves and at one another. Dean Martin turned a roast into which good-humored fun is poked at a prominent person into mass entertainment. That blacks were equal opportunity targets was testimony to the success of black entertainers and athletes. In the humorous world of today, these roasts would be considered hurtful, offensive, and hate crimes. And I really recommend you go to look at that article, whether you go through Zero Hedge or Vince's posting. It really shows how the powers that be keep using words like racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, intolerant, violent, hater, conspiracy theorist with a anti in front of every word and ism, ist, or phobia on the back of any word. Basically, these words don't even have meaning anymore. That's where we are with America. And I want to throw the little sidebar out here. Is it possible that they don't want these words to have meaning because the left, the Democrat Party, is obviously, and people are seeing it more every day, the most racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, conspiracy theorist, intolerant, violent haters that are out there. Absolutely. And when we come back, I'm going to go and finish off the last two short paragraphs of this article, and then I'm going to move on to other examples. Thank you, Vincent.
Rich Scheben, offgridmontana.com. We'll be right back. Okay, class, the link is up. If you want to go to the Paul Craig Roberts article on Zero Hedge and the links to the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast, it's at usaprepares.com. Page 1, usaprepares.com. Rich Scheben?
Thank you, Vincent. The last two paragraphs, folks, last two paragraphs of this article are very short, and I'm going to quote, "The race and gender hatreds instilled by identity politics have not only produced a humorless country, but also a disunited country. Unity has been destroyed by the Democrats' party identity politics. And as you know, we all hear, little sidebar here, they also refer to it as protectionist group status, victim group status. And this is why they've dubbed this identity politics, so people cannot connect the dots on the distract, dumb down, and divide philosophy and strategy of the globalists who have taken over the Democrat Party. So going back, identity politics in the absence of unity precludes any restoration of American greatness by President Trump. Last paragraph. Identity politics gives us only fake news, but also fake history. Again, identity politics gives us not only fake news, but also fake history. History has been made up in order to instill a victim consciousness in women and blacks. A little sidebar here. Now, of course, it's not just women and blacks, but the reason why the left goes after women and blacks so heavily is because those are very large subsets compared to, say, the homosexual community versus the heterosexual community, or the trans community versus everybody else. So basically, they're trying to hit home runs by going after big subsets. Continuing, the better to teach gender and racial hatred. The hopes of the civil rights movement for an integrated and unified country are being defeated. Once unity is shattered, all the king's horses and all the king's men can't put unity back together again. American society has headed for a split as serious as the Shiite and Sunni. Well, let's hope we can wake enough people to prevent this from happening. I think there's a lot of people out there, millions of people trying to do this. You know, one example comes to mind. I know I talk about her often, but she deserves the recognition. Candace Owens, she was, just a few years ago, she was a very lefty Democrat. And she woke up, and she realized that the war is against men. The war is about dividing and conquering people. And blacks and Hispanics are moving to the right rapidly. And I think that's one of the reasons why the agenda is being kicked up to a different notch or a different octave, because people are waking up. So this is why the left is talking about things like 25th Amendment, et cetera. And we can talk more about that after I'm done with my little rant here, if you will. Next article. Obama's former Border Patrol chief blames fight over border wall on identity politics. Media, Mike Brest, how many more factually based examples do we have to provide? Next article. Democrats reject push to alert ICE when illegal immigrants fail firearm background checks. You heard that right. It's not about the people, ladies and gentlemen. It's not about the people at all. It's about dividing and conquer the people by identity politics. Next article. Elizabeth Warren listed as her race as American Indian on the State Bar of Texas registration card. Next article. Alyssa Milano.
Hold it. Elizabeth Warren, okay? Sorry, I couldn't help this.
No, I figured you'd stop me sooner or later. Go ahead.
Well, Elizabeth Warren, this is important because she wants to be the CEO of corporate USA. Right? She lied on her bar card application saying that she was a Native American. She lied. She lied purposefully, but yet she claims that her mother told her that she was an American Indian. Mm-hmm. Really? So she's at law school age, and she doesn't know. Really?
So now we can basically say, Vince, our mother or father told us that, so we can identify as that. Basically,
absolutely,
that's where we're going. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
So now it's open season on lying.
Yep. And and this is why I always talk. I don't try to simplify this, but I try to make it. When I talk about things or talk about articles, I really feel that this audience is intelligent enough that they do their reading, their research, and their homework. So what I try and do, America, and I know a lot of people from around the world listen to this program as well, is I try to use as little messaging and words as possible to keep the article and the message in context so you know what's going on. And you can follow up with this at home on your personal computer if you want to. Okay, next article. Alyssa Milano. I do not have equality and justice because I have a vagina. unquote. Now, just for Alyssa's sake, it's unbelievable how the mainstream media and Hollywood, they're all bought and paid for actors because that's what they do. Now, think about these statistics worldwide. Combat deaths, 99.9% male. Work mortality, 94% male. Homicides, 76%. Suicides, 75%. Well, so much for male privilege. And those of you who have read the book or heard me talk about situations that's happened with affirmative action and quotas and victim group status, you will see that this is just a divide and conquer strategy. Has nothing to do with equality, fairness, prosperity, and all these politically correct buzzwords that they use. In fact, if you look at the math, they are actually the inequality between the super wealthy and everybody else has the biggest divide in the history of America it's ever been. Next article, Smollett. I'm sure everybody has read about this. The black man who happens to be gay, who put a noose around his head and actually they planned this. Anyway, refuses to meet with police, hires crisis management firm. So when it comes to victim group status, if somebody has, we can't have a different, separate tiered system of rules, laws, and accountability based on what victim group or protection group status you have. What this does, it actually destroys those groups. And I've mentioned this many, many times. Condoleezza Rice, they were worried about women turning into snowflakes and infants. Infants is a code word for babies. Men would rather not have women around, unquote. Remember the Oakland mayor that helped illegal immigrants who were convicted of sex crimes in evading ICE? I mean, we're destroying the people who think they're trying to fight for equality. Remember Rachel Tripp? She used words like, about the Women's March, words like patsies, big government swamp. The goal is to elect Democrats, and that the women are being used and disrespected. And I can go on and on and on and on. You know, we're not doing anybody any favor. Next article. Alexandra, which is basically Sandy Cortez, as you should know her, plays the women victim group status card because she was wrong in an argument. Somebody says she was wrong, and she played the victim card. Here's no next article. Only women transgenders are allowed in college debate tournament. And by the way, folks, I'm not making up these articles. These are all articles that in the last probably week and a half that's hit the media. These are published articles in the public domain. Next article. NFL paid Kaepernick between $60 and $80 million in collusion settlement. If you can find an outfit that would actually show the comments, which the big tech is doing everything to eliminate comments, you'll see that everybody, including black people, including women, are saying this is bogus. This would never happen if he wasn't black. And we got to step back in time because Kaepernick, when he was first doing this, he wasn't on his knees. Remember the first article? He was on his butt sitting on the bench because he was pouting because he didn't get to play or he wasn't starting or something. This is what's happened in America. So this is morphed. The media morphed this into him taking a knee for black pride or equality or whatever he said it was. Everything is being morphed. Next article. Kamala Harris's father slams her pursuit of identity politics. Identity politics, folks, is doing everything the opposite. In fact, everything the mainstream media says is the opposite of what they say. Everything. Next article. French schools replace mother and father with parent one and parent two. Look it up. I'm not making this up. Repercussions of Me Too movement has set women back decades. for female leadership because of risk management issue for men. Next article, insane and cheating Navratilova. Okay, remember that female tennis star back in the 80s or 90s? I can't remember when she was a star. Insane and cheating is what she calls this transgender movement because it's unfair. So if a man identifies as a woman and beats women in sports, and I'll continue a little more after the break. Vince?
We'll be right back with Rich Scheben. Till after the second hour starts to make some comments, so please continue.
Thank you, Vince. And we were talking about Navratilova. I can't pronounce her name correctly, that tennis star from a few decades ago. She was talking about how the transgender community is very unfair, and she's absolutely right. Because women's sports, and I read about this and I hear about this all the time, has no longer credibility because they're being used. When a man can identify as a woman, I mean, how can there be credibility to even be a bystander and watch for entertainment when it's totally unfair? Or when a female takes male hormones because she's in the process of transitioning into a man. Do you remember, for those of you who are old enough, do you remember when East Germany, before the wall had been taken down, the East German women were caught taking hormones? And there was a lot of issues on that. And a lot of words like unfairness and things like that. We got to remember that the mainstream media, their job, they're hired, they're actors, just like Hollywood. They're hired by the elite of the elite in order to distract, dumb down, and divide us. And when bread and circuses fail to work, they're called to grab a microphone and take to the podium to push the agenda of the so-called left/Democrats, which has been taken over by the globalist community. Remember Micah Brzezinski not too long ago, her quote was, "Media's job is to control exactly what the people think." And she's either with MSNBC or CNN, which there really isn't any difference. And that's where we are at. For those of you who think that we're putting down, someone of certain skin pigmentation or someone who's female, and that doesn't even matter anymore because now the left is saying there's 51 different genders. I mean, what political correctness is, it's not just about eliminating the truth, but to fight it. We not only have to say the truth, but we have to be willing to be hated for it. Because we need guts, we need courage. Because too many people are sitting back and they're looking at being an American as being a spectator sport. At this time in history, we cannot do that. Now, if you need female role models, look up Anna Marie Reitzinger, AnnaVonReitz.com. Listen to Faith Goldie up in Toronto, who ran for mayor. Deborah Tavares of StopTheCrimes.net, that's just one of her websites. Katie Hopkins from Rebel Media, and Candace Owens, which I talk about often. Carol Swain from PragerU. Diamond and Silk, Alveda King. There's so many, thousands, millions of great females with courage who deserve respect. I mean, just think about this wall thing. Even the mainstream media admitted that 80% of females coming through the southern border in Mexico are getting raped. 80%. Sharia law is increasing dramatically all over the Western world. Do you really think that these people care about you? If you read Marx, Alinsky, the Frankfurt School, Cloward and Piven, the Communist Manifesto, you will see that they are connecting the dots. They're going by step 1, step 2, step 3. They're using group identity politics, a.k.a. victim group status, as their number one subset under political correctness. And then there are disguising words like humanitarian and sustainable city and global warming and climate change, Agenda 21 and 30. And every day they open up their mouth about this, we lose more individual rights, liberties, and freedoms. It's up to the people to have the guts to stand up to political correctness, folks, because nobody is benefiting, and I mean nobody. Vincent?
Okay, I've got some comments to a lot of what you said. A little different tilt slant on it in today's world. Fact-based comments. When we come back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements, and they have to deal with athletes. They deal with competition in a very different way. It's an outrage. We'll be right back after top of the hour. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Rich Scheben's with us. OffGridMontana.com. Rich, back in the 1970s, I completed my undergraduate work. I received a Bachelor in Science and went on for my master's. And during the master's administration classes, I was handed a card to indicate race. They wanted to know things like, and it never really said, what are you? It just said race. And you were to pick one of the categories, and they were Black or African American, American Indian and Alaskan Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. And then the last category was other. If you notice, I never said the word white, because white was not a choice. So how did I respond? Well, I have to give you a little bit of background. My father was a teacher. He was the first teacher in our family, and I wanted to be a teacher as well, and I applied to the university that he graduated from. And my grades were okay, but I couldn't get in. Because those were the years that the government corporation wanted to make sure that you didn't really have to have qualifications to get into the university. You just had to be a specific race. And how do I know? I know because whites were having a real tough time getting into the university at that time. All universities. And I was pumping gas one summer, the summer before college, and this black guy came in, and I was pumping his gas in his car, and I saw the sticker on the back window for the university that I had applied to be admitted to. And I said, wow, you're going there? And he said, yeah. I said, how'd you do on the exam? He said, what exam? He got in. No matter what, I couldn't get in, even with letters of reference from the chair of the department, one of the departments who knew me as a child, who taught at that university, a chair of a department at that university, even with a letter of recommendation, I could not get in because they were evening up the score. Okay? So if you were black, no problem. You're in. So how did I fill out those cards? I always selected black. Now you can say it's racist. I don't care what people think. But I selected black to give a white person just another chance. In case they were adding up, how many blacks do we have in this class? Now, it's not like what I was doing, applying to the bar, stating I was black. This is a survey. This did not indicate me. This was a survey. And it was an outrage. It was an outrage what was happening. So to get into the university, if you were black, you got preferential treatment. It didn't matter what your test scores were. You didn't even have to take a test. And that didn't set well with me. Now, I don't want you to think I'm a racist, because I'm not. I have many black friends, and I really love them. But I expect them to work as hard as I work for whatever they get. And I hope they get a lot. And I hope they appreciate their hard work, because one of the things that I have figured out recently is that when you approach a project, whatever that project is, let's put me in this equation, for example. Let's say I'm going to work on the farm, and let's say it's something that's tough, and it's hard, and it's uphill, and it's painful. And I approach it, and I say, I'm going to do this because I need to do it, I want to do it, and I'm going to do it. Even though I may not have all the answers, I'm going to figure out how to do it. When I'm all done, I can pat myself on the back and say, you did it. Good job. It worked. And there's satisfaction in that. There's satisfaction in doing a job well. There's satisfaction in a job well done. But today, where's the satisfaction of these millennials? Not all of them. Some of them. Maybe too many of them. What satisfaction do they get? And from what? Did they change their oil for the first time and say, wow, I'm really proud of myself. I was able to do that. I don't think so. I don't think they want to do that. I think it's too hard. I think it takes too much thought. I think it's too dirty. Why do it? Heck, you don't have to change your oil anyway. So where do they get their satisfaction from? They post silly things on Zuckerberg's spy site. And they say, look at me, 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 look at my dog. And then they say, do you like me? I hope you like me. Because I'll go into a tailspin if you don't like me. So they're looking in strange places for satisfaction. Vicarious satisfaction. If you like me, I'm satisfied. If you like me looking at my dog, I'm satisfied. Really? This is absolutely nuts. This is the prescription for the demise of our country. Unity. You talked about unity and disunity. I got to tell you, class, that the family farm is a unit, just like our family farm is a unit. We all pull in the same way. We all try to make sure that nobody's pulling the wrong way. We're all working together. We have meetings. We eat together. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We figure out who's going to do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, where the money's going to be allocated. We are a unit. We can't afford to have somebody go off haywire. We can't afford to have somebody say, all right, I guess you're making me change the oil in the tractor, all right. And then take out the drain plug and not put oil in it and blow up the tractor. We can't afford that to happen. We all have to be on the same page. Not only our family, but our country. Let's go to the next thing that you mentioned, Rich Scheben. And you talked about athletes and you talked about drug enhancement. What we're talking about is performance-enhancing drugs in sports. It's cheating. It's lying. It's deception. Why? Because those people who are using those drugs are not good enough to win on their own merits. Okay. Emerson Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti, race car drivers. They were athletes. If you think that you can get behind the wheel of a race car and not be physically fit, you're mistaken. It's grueling. It is just brutal running those races. All right, so where are we today? So today, many athletes cheat because they're not good enough to win on their own merits. On Friday, there was a race, Daytona 500, and there were 40 cars in the lineup, 40 cars going round and round and round at 200 miles an hour. And one guy, Paul Menard, isn't good enough to win. So what does he do? He takes his race car and he rams into the back of the guy in front of him. It's getting near the end of the race, and he figures, well, he'll just push this guy out of the way. At 200 miles an hour, these guys are all bunched up. The cars are quite equivalent to each other. We're talking about less than 1% delta in performance and every other measure from one car to another, 1%. So it really depends on how good the drivers are. So what does Paul Menard do? He rams into the guy in front of him and causes him to spin out of control. Now these cars are bunched up. 200 miles an hour side by side, bumper to bumper. Well, almost bumper to bumper. Paul Menard rams the guy in front in a very precise location. Typically, it's the right rear corner. And if you bump the guy right there, you'll cause him to spin out. And there's no recovering from that spin out. What happened was 18 cars were involved in a fiery crash. 18 out of 40. Paul Menard's greed took out half the cars, destroyed them. I'm not talking about a couple dents. I'm talking about these cars were up in the air, spinning around, crashing into each other, front, back, side, left, right, every way you can imagine. And what's it called in the industry? It's called bump and run. It's a hit and run. It's a hit and run. So you slam into the guy in front of you, push him out of control, and then you pass him. That's hit and run. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable on the highways, the byways, or the racetrack. He got caught. So what does this jerk say? My bad. Quote, my bad. What kind of a stupid saying is my bad? That guy is guilty of causing an 18-car crash. Destroyed millions of dollars worth of property. Millions. And just like when my son said, hey, Dad, this guy crashed into the back of me. My son was at a stoplight behind another guy. Guy in front of him stopped. My son stopped in this big Dodge truck. And some jerk crashed into the back of him. I said, he okay? He said, yeah. I said, is the other guy okay? He said, yeah. I said, did you beat him up? I expected him to say, yeah, I knocked him out. But he didn't. We have lost it. I'll be right back with Rich Scheben. I've got a little bit more of this rant. Rich, you started all this, and here's the rest of this rant. So, Paul Menard gets behind the wheel of this race car and destroys through his deliberate actions. Destroys 18 race cars in a matter of seconds because he wanted to win. So, Menard. Where have I heard that word? Menard. Menards. Well, Menards is a store. The guy who started Menards is the father of Paul Menard, the guy who caused these crashes. And if you look on the race car of Paul Menard, it says Menards. So Menards is a sponsor of Paul Menard's race car. Paul Menard is a millennial. Me first. I want to win. Whatever it takes. My bad. Sorry. Didn't even say sorry. My bad. Causing that massive, massive crash on the track. So what have I done? I've crossed Menards off my list. Why? I'm not going there. I've got to be desperate to go to Menards. I've got to be in a situation where our plumbing has failed and whatever it is I need, I don't have it, which would be unlikely, but to go to Menards. So I've crossed Menards off my list. Now, Menards, like father, like son. Why am I saying that? Well, Menards will give you 11% off. They don't give you 11% off. They say they do. It's a lie. They say 11% off. No, it's really 11% credit on your next purchase. So what you do is you go there, then you fill out a form, then they send you a postcard-looking thing that is likely to be thrown out because it looks like junk mail, but that is your 11% credit on your next purchase. So Menards figures, these are my words, that you are going to be greedy as they are, and you are going to want that 11% off, but they get you on the hook by not giving you 11% off right then and there. They give you a credit 6 weeks later. So to use your credit, you've got to go back to Menards. It worked once on me, once, because I bought an $1,100 hot water heater. They're the only guys that had it. So who are their sponsors? Well, Ford, Goodyear tires, they're good for a year. That's the saying in the industry. Goodyear, they're good for a year, not much more. Motorcraft, Quick Lube, 3M, Valvoline, Molly, and Moog. I can't believe it. Moog, M-O-O-G, they are great parts. I like using Moog parts. And I'm going to call them up after the broadcast and say, I can't believe you're sponsoring this Me First Millennial, Paul Menard, the guy who caused the massive wreck at the Daytona 500. I hope you consider pulling your sponsorship of that guy because he's a Me Firster. But Scheben, I think I'm done with the rant.
All right. Well, I'm going to put an exclamation point on my rant that I did earlier. Folks, when people talk about, most of the mainstream media uses politically correct buzzwords and terms like diversity. It shouldn't be about skin pigmentation, shades, gender, sexual orientation, religion. And it should be about ideas and solutions for the people that are intellectual in nature, that are thinking outside the box in nature. Because when we lower the bars of standards and expectations for decade after decade after decade after decade, which we have, especially for getting a job, we insult the work ethic, the ability, and the intelligence of all these people who are jumping on the ship of the narrative, which is basically the mainstream media's job is to race bait, gender bait, sex bait, religion bait, to manufacture perception and pity and even ideology because they're so desperate to hold on to the narrative. If we all read up, researched up, and spoke up, we would hold the narrative. Because when you lower the bars of standards and expectations, especially for getting a job, you degrade those people, you disrespect those people. We have turned into the law of diminishing returns because we have rewarded mediocrity for decades. We're destroying America from within, and we're destroying opportunity for all of us because of all this political correct crap. Vince?
We'll be right back. Class, speak up, speak out. So we had a former president of the United States. His name is Joe Biden, also known as Joe the Plagiarist, also known as Jumpin' Joe Biden. Why? Because it seemed that he would favor whichever side would bribe him the most. So Joe Biden's in Europe, and he says that America today is an embarrassment. Here's the excerpt from his remarks. Quote, "The America I see values basic human decency, not snatching children from their parents or turning our back on refugees at our border. Americans know that's not right. The American people understand plainly that this makes us an embarrassment. The American people know overwhelmingly that it is not right. That is not who we are," end quote. That's from Jumpin' Joe Biden. So here's something else that Jumpin' Joe Biden said. If you want to keep someone away from your house, just fire the shotgun through the door. Okay. Jumpin' Joe Biden. So, police be on notice that Jumpin' Joe Biden gave you permission to fire your shotgun through your front door when the police come and knock. Keep that in mind. Just doing what I was told. You can tell the survivors, I'm just doing what I was told. Because Jumpin' Joe Biden said, quote, if you want to keep someone away from your house, just fire the shotgun through the door. End quote. Joe Biden is an embarrassment, class. Now, you may think that I am ranting about millennials, but it's our fault. It's our fault because we allowed these school systems to disintegrate into a babysitting activity. We've allowed the school systems to teach things like Black History Month. Now, I don't have any problem with talking about the blacks' involvement in history, the true history. I have no problem with that. And as a matter of fact, I support and endorse it. But I don't think that we should have a Black History Month, an American Native History Month, or any other kind of special history month for a group of people. We should be teaching history. And in that history, everybody that participated of significance should be in that history curriculum. Not singling out, not dividing. Were people evil by keeping slaves? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's wrong. I can't stand where we're going. I can't stand the disintegration of the United States by a bunch of people who want to take us down. Joe Biden seems to be one of them. Bernie Sanders seems to be one of them. Barack Hussein Obama, also known as Barry Soetoro, is one of them. Hillary Clinton is one of them. Bill Clinton is one of them. Treason should be punished. I don't understand.
May I comment?
Please do.
Okay, first of all, what he's trying to do, Biden, is shame. That's just one of the strategies of conformity. And we have to remember that, and this is a subset of what I talked about earlier today, race, gender, and sexual orientation is a business of division for the left. Race, gender, sexual orientation is a business of division for the left. Now, as far as voting is concerned, in illegal immigrations, since 2001, we've had at least, and this is conservative, 20,000 Americans killed by illegals. In the last couple of years, over 4,000 and like 30,000 in sexual assaults and rapes. So when all these angel moms who go to see Schumer and Pelosi, and they basically get kicked out of the office and aren't even heard, but illegal immigrants who are protected in sanctuary cities have more rights than American people who their children have been murdered and raped. This is why, folks, we need to also lobby for voter fraud. It should be declared a national emergency. Let me repeat that. Voter fraud needs to be declared a national emergency. Same with election reform. What we need to do is end this two-party theater and bring in multiple parties. We need to at least look into this because everything is a sham. Everything is run by actors who are paid for, bought and paid for. So what do we need to do? We need to speak up. We need to read up and research up because the whole system, from the economy to political correctness to politics in general to anything of social consequence, is absolutely fake and phony. It's gotten to the point, like I mentioned earlier, we have well past the law of diminishing returns. Nobody's benefiting. And that is by design. The only people who are benefiting, look at the math, are the people at the very top. That's why I mentioned some of these professors, like the University of Illinois professor, that woman who said that objective facts for math is racist. I mean, it's a microaggression. She's saying it's white privilege, that we have to use, to understand anything, we must use subjective emotional opinion and not objectivity. I mean, we're full speed ahead into stupid. This is why the people need to stand up and speak up. And let's not forget, I know I mention this often, but remember those 17-year-old combat soldiers who died on the beaches of France and other places, who lied about their age so they can come into this armed services, especially during World War II, who died on the beaches for our freedoms and liberties, for our Bill of Rights and Constitution. We've lost over 1 million combat soldiers in America who wear American flags on their shoulders. Are we just going to forget about them? We need to speak up, folks, and we need to speak up hard, and we need to have unity, not with subjective emotional opinion, but with objective facts, because the only people who are benefiting from all this theater, all this political correctness, is the elite, because they are hiding stuff. They have to. I mean, look at the Democrats are desperate. That's why they're afraid of the declassification, because they've got caught doing a presidential coup. There's no Russian collusion. This is why they got to increase the hate, the lies, the propaganda, the false flag. That's why you hear words like racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe over and over again, which has no meaning anymore. You're a conspiracy theorist, anti-this, phobia that, ism and is. It's to distract. It's to divide. It's for voter recruitment. It's obstruction. There's no Russian collusion by Trump. The mainstream media should put the same amount of time and intensity into covering this, but they're not. They want to double down on it. McCabe even admitted publicly to the coup d'etat. Schiff had correspondence with the fake dossier creator. Everybody, every animal in the forest who's got an IQ higher than a chipmunk knows that the Democrat National Committee and Hillary Clinton paid for the fake Russian dossier. The fraud with the FISA warrants, the fraud with the judges. There's got to be at least 100 people directly involved into this coup. Everybody knows about it. Everybody's reading it. It's everywhere. This is why they got to promote hate and division. They got to keep us off our game. They got to keep our eye off the ball. It's all to protect them. You are being used, America. If you are a hyphenated American by gender, by skin pigmentation shade, by sexual orientation, or anything, you're being used. We are allowing the elite to poison us against ourselves. So we either stand up for America and for President Trump, who's working around a bunch of traitors who are fighting for their lives because they've scammed the American people illegally. So we either stick up for President Trump, stick up for America, or every ounce of freedom and liberty will be gone, and the middle class will be a term used in history. Vince?
Well, you mentioned animals in the forest, and I've got to ask, why do people pick on apes, saying Michelle looks like one? Two teenagers in.
I don't know how we went there, Vince, but all right, it's your show. Okie-dokie.
Well, you said animals in the forest, and I know that this gal.
Okay, all right. When I say animals in the forest, I mean in the northern Rockies here.
Well, I was thinking about this woman who said that Michelle looks like an ape. And I'm thinking, why are we picking on the apes? So 2 teenagers in New York, one was 13 and one was 15, have been expelled from school after their mother refused to have them vaccinated because of her evangelical religious beliefs. So the 2 girls were suspended November 30th after their request for religious exemption to the school's vaccination policy was denied. By the way, class, so our son wanted to try the public training camp because he had never been to school, and he wanted to try to see what high school was like. He'd never been to school before, homeschool. And the school said he has to be vaccinated, and we tried every way to get around it, and we couldn't. So finally I said, it's against our religion. They pulled out the form, said sign here, and we were done. They don't want to tell you that there was a religious exemption. And they didn't ask, were we the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, or Catholic, or Protestant, or Dutch Reformed, or Jew. A lady said to Winston Churchill that he's a drunk. And Winston Churchill said, my dear, you are ugly, but tomorrow I shall be sober and you will still be ugly. Very good point. And, my wife said that people can't help the way they look. That's true. That's really true. But you know what? It seems to me that the people who are causing our problems are ugly in thought, word, deed, and physical appearance. They're ugly every way I can think of. So these 2 New York teenagers were expelled from school because of not accepting biological and chemical injections into their bodies by, the school says you will be injected. And if you don't want that, you can use a religious exemption, except that this particular school in New York, the Orchard Park School District, says that, no, we're not going to let those 2 girls in school because they haven't been vaccinated. It's against the law to do that. But that's what the school did. They violated the law. And I was not going to let our children be vaccinated. And so we just used the religious exemption. And you can do that too. But your school is not going to willingly let you know that. David in Illinois, welcome. You're on with Rich Scheben and me.
How you doing? I hope I'm not backtracking much, but you were talking about voter fraud. When me and my wife went to vote this last time, there was people there showing up there, calling other people, telling them they're not checking IDs, and they were going up there to get to vote. They didn't even know how to spell the name they were going by. They would pull up a name on their phone and say, here, you can spell it this way. And they were right behind us doing it. And calling.
There's over 1 million people that are supposedly voting under dead names, going across state borders, voting multiple times, just using their ID that a certain state gives them, and they're illegal aliens, not even citizens voting. This is why we need to ask President Trump to use our technology with E-Verify and so many technological tools, maybe voting over video, maybe confirming it with some type of password. You can go online to verify your votes. Everything needs to be checked and double-checked. And we have the technology to do it, to verify citizen voting. If we did that, I think we'd have more legitimacy in our voting system, because I think voting, it's almost done. There's so many people who don't want to vote because of the illegitimacy. But if we had better verification and proof of citizen voting, then I think more people would even vote, because there would be more credibility behind it.
David, you got a comment on that?
Yeah, it's just I just couldn't believe it. They even printed out extra forms for us when we went, and my wife said, "No, I want mine. I want to tear it up." She said, "No, we'll keep it back here. We'll get rid of it later." And she said, "No." You know, I was shocked. They didn't care.
Nope.
But
they lower the bars. Go ahead, Dave.
I have one other quick comment. You talked about Obama's. Now, they always told people that they lived in a bad area. That's the area they hid me at when I was a kid. That is the upper class, well-to-do, elite area. Those people live in homes the size of apartment buildings. You know. So,
are you saying that Obama lied about his residence in Chicago, that area?
Yes, that's the area they hid me at, and I met some of them people. I would go to visit them people. They have homes the size of apartment buildings.
So would you say that that our politicians lie, cheat, steal, obfuscate, try to confuse us in every way, misrepresent the truth? Yeah. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. His wife got a huge increase in pay where they had me at right when he became senator.
David, thanks so much. I thought you were going to say she got a huge new belt. Rich Scheben, thanks so much for being with us. Offgridmontana.com.